Members, we have a quorum and it's the appointed time. I call the meeting to order. Item number 1, matters arising. The Secretariat gave us a page of list of follow-up actions. To remind us of the matters to which we seek responses from, seek responses from the administration, is paper number CB bracket 2138/13 bracket 01. Members, please go over it. Deputy Chairman, go over it to see if you want to add anything. If there is no comments, well, we will leave it like that. You can add items anytime you like. Item 2 is the consultancy study on improving the operating environment of public markets. Let's invite the administration to join us. Apart from the administration, we have the consultant with us. First is Dr. Simon Su, Ms. Patsy Chung, Dr. Wyman Chung, and Mr. Gary Young. Representing the administration, we have Ms. Diane Wong, Ms. Vincy Chan, Ms. Ava Chiu, and Mr. Fan Yong Kai. PAS, Principal Assistant Secretary, are you going to take us through the paper? I thank the subcommittee for giving us the opportunity to invite the consultant to come to the LegCo. The consultant is BMT Asia Pacific Limited. In relation to the scope, purpose, methodology of the study, the consultant will give a presentation. We welcome members' views, and the consultant is happy to hear from members before they finalize the report. Thank you. You would like to get the consultant to give a presentation? Who is to do it? We have a simple presentation, a brief one. I thank you for inviting BMT to come to LegCo to listen to your views. The purpose of the study is on improving the operating environment of public markets. In relation to the scope, we will give views on the functions and positioning of public markets. We will conduct a general review of public markets and come up with improvement proposals. And we will provide general suggestions to routine improvement works and to suggest ways and measures to preserve market stalls selling traditional commodities or traditional specialties. We have a team of members with different expertise. We have Ms. Patsy Chung with us today. She is the Director of C Network. She is also our Director. We have Dr. Wyman Chung and myself and Mr. Gary Young. Mr. Gary Young is an architect. from the Chinese University. So is Dr. Wyman Zhang. We will have to go through the functions and positioning. We will conduct reviews. We will have desktop research, on-site study and technical analysis. We will talk to stakeholders, including organizing engagement sessions, questionnaire surveys, focus groups discussions, and then we will conduct questionnaire data analysis and take into account overseas experience. We will collect views from government departments, from market patrons, associations, and tenants. On the 25th of March and 2nd of April, we organized 2 engagement sections with the district council members, members of market management consultative committees, representatives of associations, and market traders. We are now conducting the review on the positioning of public markets. We plan to do a questionnaire survey in May. We will analyze the views collected and come up with improvement proposals. If everything goes smoothly, we hope that in the middle of this year there will be preliminary findings. We welcome members' views. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. So. Now I open the floor for members to ask questions. First, Mr. Wong Kok Hing. The consultant provided us with a simple framework of study, and I'd like to make a few comments on this study. And I would also like to get some response from the consultant and the administration. I talked about it last time. Some members said that the study of public markets should not be segregated from history. You should look at the situation prior to the disbandment of the municipal council and the regional municipal council. Municipal Services Council and the Regional Municipal Services Council. I would like you to add to that. 2, in relation to the consultancy report, according to your annex, you did not say it verbally, but in your annex you say that when it comes to installation of air conditioning, it depends on whether you get 85% support from market traders. That itself is a problem. Why do you use 85%? Why don't you give us a number of options? The drawing of the line itself is not objective. I was an elected member of the Municipal Services Council. We did not ask for agreement of 85% of market stalls before we installed air conditioning. So I think this is unreasonable, this 85%. I think you already have a preconceived idea, and using this as the basis of your study is problematic. I think you should come up with different options from 0 to 85%. There were suggestions from the Municipal Services Council. Why did you not consider that? And 3, in your study, you did not consider the size of existing stores in existing markets. They are very small. It seems that is not that is not under your scope of study. What about the appearance, the design design of public markets. There are criticisms that they are like castles, completely enclosed. Did you study the full facade of the public market building? I don't think he'll have time to answer all these questions. Let me finish. I don't care if there will be answers. I'm sorry you have interrupted my line of thought. Okay, number 5. The setting of a rental level. How is it? How can you ensure that they are reasonable? The administration is talking about legitimacy, and they charge the rental according to the prices assessment of the Ratings and Valuation Department. So the rental level is too high for operators to survive. And number 5, it is also, this is my 5th point, and it's very important and should be studied into. Number 6. Should you study the policy of public markets on the part of the government? Well, the Hong Kong SARG existed for 10 years or so, but it should not be broken from history. What are the changes of public markets? So you need to decide future change. I want to go through my final point. What about market bazaars that are not municipal public markets? Say in Taiwan, they have a very famous night bazaars. These markets or bazaars are not like public markets, but still you need to include them in your study. Otherwise, your views will not be balanced. Ms. Chen Yin-han. Public markets is a necessity to the everyday life of the public, but this is not apportioned with due attention from the administration. I'm not a member of this subcommittee, but I would like to participate. This is a form of business operation, and there is room for expansion and development for this kind of economic activity. I know that you have been to DC's district councils and you have collected views. If you deal with public markets on the existing basis, I'm afraid you will not be able to achieve any breakthrough. I remember that when Mr. Yong Wing-kong was the Secretary for Food and Health, I took him to public markets. He felt stifled because the air was close and it was hot. Very different from European markets. Let me talk about Chunyang Street in North Point. It's a market with both dry goods and fresh produce. Well, and then later it was moved to Electric Road. And still, Chunyang Street Market still survive. I find that only the stores on the ground floor can survive. There was a chance for a site in Mongkok, in North Point, that could be turned into a public market, but it was used for a hotel. So first, how do you position public markets? With the existing approach, you have to first define public markets.
Second, what's the mode of constructing markets? When we look at Yonge Road markets or Mongkok market, they are quite mixed in nature. There are a lot of things in the markets. For stores which for stores which are located both inside and outside markets, their business is often better. We have to find out the reason. If we consider markets a crucial and important part of the livelihoods of Hong Kong people, this is one thing we must clarify. For tenants, I see from the report that markets are changing. They're selling dry and wet goods as well as other things. Especially when business is not so good, people would start selling other things. So we are following the market, but a lot of people don't have a choice. They are forced to follow the market. Some people want to sell their handicrafts, and yes, they have no way of entering markets or selling their things in the market. Let me cite an example. In Australia, in a country park, they can sell different things at different times of the day. They can sell strawberries, vegetables, and a few hours later they will close, and at night time it will become a bar. So markets should be multi-purpose, and we should be more imaginative. We are killing a lot of creativity. For Chunyuan Market at that time in 1988, I was a district council. I think this is a joke. So we have to think about the mode of operating markets. Apart from food stuff, is there anything people can sell inside? The country park in Australia is a prime example. When I read the reports this morning, the FTU is concerned with livelihoods. I think we are not getting to the root of the problem. Let's look at the bigger picture. I will have a seminar in PolyU and CUHK later on. After almost 20 years, I have seen a lot of ups and downs in the economy of Hong Kong. The government has ignored a lot of things in the course of development. Helena Wong. Thank you, Chairman. This is a study commissioned by the government to a consultancy. Is it still possible to us to add or remove certain things at this stage, Secretary? The brief, the scope of study has been laid out in the brief. And we have arranged meetings for discussions. So apart from the consultancy, outside the consultancy brief, we can discuss other issues later. Is there any room for us to raise suggestions on items for discussion? Or can we still give comments? The brief lays out the scope of study, and that said, we would still listen to the comments from LegCo members. However, for items outside the scope of study, perhaps we have to think about it. I don't know what your scope is. If we cannot incorporate new items, the government should study how to incorporate new comments. The existing scope is very narrow. They just have the consultancy only has to look at how to improve the operating environment of public markets. You also want to bring new business to markets. I think this is of public interest. As a LegCo member, I think we need concrete plans for the future of public markets, and the government and LegCo members should be involved in the discussions, and we must review the existing situation of public markets. And we must come up with a policy for public markets. Right now, the scope of study is very, very narrow. Have we ever looked at the demand for public markets in different districts? Do we see situations where a public market is needed, but yet it doesn't exist in a specific district? For example, Tin Shui Wai market has come to LegCo many times, and we have had discussions, and we agree that Lai Chi Kok and other districts might need public markets. However, the problem still exists in Tin Shui Wai. If these are not covered in the study, the government must do other studies to review the demand for public markets in other districts of Hong Kong, and under which criteria can we open a new market in Hong Kong. We are mainly talking about public markets under the control of FEHD. But the fact is, we have a lot of different kinds of markets. Some of them were sold to the Link, and they are being managed by someone else. And some of them were outsourced, and the contractors would outsource to tenants, etc. So if we have a complete review, we cannot just look at public markets under FEHD and ignore other markets, because problems do exist elsewhere. When I visit Kai Tak, when I visit the shopping malls there, the tenants are really suffering, and they are being forced to open for business when they have no business. Their operating environments are very bad, and they have turned to LegCo members for help. So are these something you can ignore? I hope our subcommittee does not only look at public markets under FHD and look at things like air conditioning, rents. We should also tackle the problems of specific districts, as well as markets not under the control of FEHD. So I'm trying to look at the big picture. You have spent so long, and they have no time to respond. So let's move on to the next member, Chen Chi-chun. I'd like to thank the consultancy for coming over today. But what we heard, it's only a very, very brief report. So I have some specific questions on the progress of work. You said you have completed 2 consultation sessions to review the positioning of public markets. So is this only for the first phase of the study? You said results are expected in the middle of this year. So yes, I see they said yes. So in theory, you should have already completed a questionnaire. Can you share the outcome of the questionnaire? I expected the questionnaire results to be attached to this paper. Otherwise, all our talk is rather empty. And on the issue of sampling, what's your methodology of sampling, and how many questionnaires are you aiming to conduct? And for the next part, you talked about recommendations for public markets. I have one suggestion. When we talk about improving public markets, air conditioning is very important. You can choose public markets which have implemented air conditioning systems for a long time. And I visited a market in East NT, and they have installed air conditioners for a long time ago, and now it's the time to review and to renovate the air conditioners. They have it creates a big headache for them, and they are stalled over discussions on rent exemption, and the FEHD ignored the comments from different associations, and they said they are going to do their own surveys, and the associations were agitated, and at the end only 10 or 20% of the people returned the questionnaires, and at the end of the day the money had to go back to the government. So if you choose the right markets for your questionnaires, you will be able to know the facts. For the second phase review, how do you carry out the sampling, and how many samples will you collect? So perhaps we can exchange our views. Secretary, I will give a brief answer. At the beginning, we wanted to hire a consultancy with retail and commercial experience, and they need to study how to improve the environment of public markets. And under the consultancy brief, we made it very clear that first, they have to look at the functions and positioning of public markets. Just now, some members have gave their comments, and we have also consulted stakeholders. Second, the scope of study. We have mentioned covering public markets under FEHD for those under THB. They should be responsible. We have mentioned clearly in our papers, we will look at different things like air conditioning, ventilation, store areas, etc. We would also look at consumer profile, shopping preference when we draw our recommendations. And on the issue of the consultation for installing aircon systems at 85%, it's necessary to look at the current practices and needs. Perhaps I will hand over to the consultancy to give their views as well.
Dr. Su. Just now, member asked about the selection of public markets and other matters. We want to choose those that are representative. If they're selected, we can increase pedestrian flow, and we will be able to inject vibrancy into the market. So priorities are given to markets with an urgency for improvement or renovation of their facilities. We're still discussing with the administration about the selection. It's not yet finalized. Once we have selected the markets, we will conduct surveys. We have to make sure when it comes to sampling that the samples are representative of public markets. And they include patrons, non-patrons, and traders. I have a very clear question. That is, well, have you worked out the questionnaire that will be used in May? Can you show them to us? What about the sampling size? I will defer to Dr. Zhang. Yes, there is a design of the questionnaire. We have not yet finalized it for the publication. We have a draft. It's more advanced than an initial draft, but it's not yet finalized. In relation to customers of public markets and non-customers, together with traders, they will each have a draft questionnaire ready. Perhaps they will be given to you once they are finalized. But you say that there will be a questionnaire survey in May, and in the middle of in the middle of the year, then you will have the preliminary findings. So you don't have time. When do you think the questionnaires can be finalized? We plan to have the questionnaire survey in May. And the questionnaire survey will take 4 to 5 weeks. So the questionnaire should be finalized at the beginning of May, in the mid-May or end of May. Once it's finalized, can it be given to the LegCo? Well, for consultant is a final one. It's just we're just waiting to see if the administration will accept that. I believe that we can share it with LegCo members, because when it's used, members of the public will know. And the sampling size will be over 1,100. I believe that over a period of a few weeks that can be done. Perhaps Mr. Chan, you will follow up in the next round. Deputy Chairman, thank you. Today's meeting was to confirm that there were quite strong discontent from store traders. Some of them resort to jumping off from a bridge. I'm sure Dr. Cole knew that. That was from the last legislative session. That's why we have today's meeting and we have the subcommittee. The administration never gave us any study briefs. The consultant, of course, is bound by confidentiality agreements and hence cannot disclose information to the Council. In the annex, we have a bit of detail about the scope of the study. But I am not optimistic at all. I don't think it will be the study report the LegCo would like to see, say on functions and positioning. Perhaps it may be in more detail in the brief given to the consultant. When I look at it, it's not something we are looking for. It's just talked about what customers would use it. Is it for dry goods, wet goods? What are their preference, and what about location? It's not what we have in mind. I thought Dr. Cole took on board what we suggested. We wanted to know that in Hong Kong we have supermarkets. We have some some outlets that is of a higher scale, and we have also some other shops. What about our public markets? How do they survive? I think that the hands of the consultant are tied. You want to view the functions and positioning of public markets. You have to come up with improvement proposals. Do you think, consultant, that these issues will be addressed, the problems will be resolved with the report? What data do you collect to reposition the public markets? Can it be done? I'd like to hear from the consultant. I want to ask the consultant, PAS. Yes, but I want to say that you were talking about the second part of the brief. In the first part, we set out very clearly that the consultant can view the functions and positioning of public markets. In the first part, it is said that the administration will give their views on various areas. Well, we see that we don't see the consultant very often, but PAS, you're here nearly every day. Dr. Su? In relation to part 1, in relation to functions and positioning of existing public markets, it is set out clearly in this brief that we will collect views and then make recommendations. And when it comes to changes over the course of history, we of course will take that into account. And we will give recommendations as to what is going to happen in the future. Ms. Chang? I thank member for the question. I think ultimately you want to know what we can do. And when it comes to functions and positioning, as times changes, expectations change as well. And a member mentioned about historic reasons. Please continue. We have taken that into account when we fully understand the background. We can set that out. But the most important part in our study is this. This is how I understand it. We identify some markets, improve them, so they become examples. We can work out a pattern or a model to show that FEHD public markets can have a facelift. We create a new environment and then we find out the way forward. There are 76 FEHD markets. I've been to most of them. There are lots of problems with their facilities. And is some distance from the level of markets operated by other operators, especially older ones. Do we have the condition to go down the right path? As Mr. Leung said, we need to find some markets improve them so that they serve as examples. When it comes to facilities, say the appearance, can it be improved? Yes, I can say that there is indeed room for improvement. We talk about size of stores. Are they large enough? In some new markets, they have used some new standards. Well, there is room for improvement. And a member mentioned Yongok Road, and a member mentioned about bazaars. Public markets are successful because, to a large extent, of planning. Without a pedestrian environment, it will be difficult for public markets to survive. This is what we want to do. We want to identify public markets, use them as examples, introduce a marked change before we move on to more details like future positioning and the way forward for public markets. Mr. Leung. Well, after hearing Ms. Zhang, I gather that the conclusion of the report is to identify examples and use them to demonstrate. So it seems that they already have an idea. I'm a little bit more confident with the study after hearing Ms. Chang. But the PAS always taking, interrupting and taking the limelight. I am concerned that BMT Asia Pacific has their hands tied. But if that is the case, there is nothing this subcommittee can do. It's just a comment. Next, Mr. Wu Chiwai. Well, I think the answers to these questionnaires will be very clear if you do a questionnaire about a public market. If you ask customers, they want something to be cheap and cheerful. And if you ask traders, they want high footfall, high level of footfall. The team says that they want to identify markets and use them as demonstrations. But I think it's easier said than done. Well, it's very important to choose the right market if you want to provide to make one into one with high footfall, offering cheap goods. Taixing Street Market is very busy, whereas Choi Hung Road public market is not. The latter has been filled with Indonesian stores and the like. Yes, the vacancy rate has dropped, but it doesn't serve the function public markets are supposed to perform. How can you restore these markets to their original positionings and functions, or will you just let them go along the same way because the problem has been there for too long? Of course, for businessmen, they care most about footfall. And people choose one market over another because of some positive factors in place. Say, for Hygiene market, there are already a lot of people and they offer good products, so more people will go there. For the other one, the Choi Hong one, there are less people, so the variety of goods and the price level of goods offered will be a poorer choice for customers, and as a result, less people go there. We know about the result without the study, but I think PAS, you have to identify 2 or 3 cases and show us, like a marketing research, how you turn them into markets providing goods with that are value for money with high level of footfall. In this way, the consultant will have to actually deliver instead of just giving hot air.
Secretary, any response? Dr. Su, thank you very much for the questions, for the comments. These are very useful comments, and we will certainly take them into reference and hold further discussions with the government. Thank you very much. Does the Secretary agree that this is a more meaningful direction to go for the consultancy study? Would you set examples for a good public market? Yes, this is our line of thinking as well. We would choose 5 to 6 public markets as showcases. In terms of hardware and software, we would try to achieve improvements, and they can serve as examples. Do you mean that you would choose public markets with high vacancy rates? I just want to know your standards for choosing these markets. We are negotiating with the consultancy. We are in progress of setting a line. We will look at the flow of patrons, location, and other factors, and we would assign scores. Can the government share more information? And this way we can determine the viability of their study. I think the member's suggestion is viable. You can choose 4 or 5 public markets with different amounts of visitors. We would choose public markets with a high level of representation, and other public markets can learn from these role models. Our hope is to choose different types and public markets of different nature. What Ms. Chang said was very reasonable. Alice Mack. After what Ms. Chang said, we now feel a bit more comfortable with the study. We are not just improving public markets. We shouldn't just talk about installing air conditioners, but we should look at the functions and positioning of public markets. So this is our ultimate aim. When the study is finished, Ms. Chang mentioned street life. Since 2011, I have been involved in price level studies in public markets in 18 districts. We understand that even if a market is under FEHD control, if there aren't a lot of people on the streets in the vicinity of the market, the tenants won't have very good business. So we should look at the overall planning of the districts. For example, Yeung Ok Road market or the Sanhui market in Tuen Mun. If people cannot park outside the market, it will attract a lot less people, especially during weekends. A lot of people go shopping in the public markets during weekends. So if no parking space is available, then the markets won't have a lot of visitors during Saturdays and Sundays. So I hope the study shouldn't just look at installing air conditioners. It should also provide suggestions for to the government in terms of planning. With these recommendations from the consultancy, I'm not sure whether the government can liaise with other bureaus and departments to remove these constraints. So, frankly speaking, I can expect what I can expect the study results. You're just trying to justify your views with hard figures. However, even with the right results, can you persuade other bureaus to execute change? We have heard comments, for instance, the importance of street life, like Taipo Market and Kowloon City Market. A lot of people would drive, and they need parking spaces. And these comments will be included in the report. And afterwards, we will be responsible for following up with other departments and bureaus. The consultancy is conducting an independent survey, and they would come up with suggestions for us, and we will be in charge for following up with other departments. Thank you very much for the question. I have nothing to add. From your PowerPoint presentation, you said you would collect comments from stakeholders. I want to mention one thing. It mentioned the market management consultative committees. District councillors would take part in these committees. You should review how many meetings have been conducted and who actually took part in these meetings. I'm quite concerned if you are only collecting comments through these committee meetings. You shouldn't only consult these consultative committees. You should also consult other parties. These committees contain FEHD reps. So I hope you would collect comments from different parties and sectors. Stephen Ho. My comment is similar as Alice Mack. A lot of people talked about installing air conditioners, so I'm not going to repeat it. On transport arrangements, before I became a electrical member, I often drive to Chilok Garden Market, and I would park my car there and eat at the tea cafe there. We went there often, not because of the food, but because the location was convenient. So the point is, I was never a middle class, and I don't like drinking coffee, but the location of markets is important. So please don't ignore the location of public markets when you conduct your study. And I visit estates near public markets. A lot of markets look very empty to me, and this is expected. Because there are multiple markets in that area. So when you look at the venue of the markets, you should look at demographic demand before you decide whether to build one big market or several small markets. Do we need to revitalize all public markets? Secretary, or would perhaps the consultancy can respond? Dr. Su, for the issue of transportation, it's one of the important parameters, and we would certainly take that into account, and it's one very important factor. And on population density, we have also taken this factor into account. When we chose these role models, so we have taken population density and transportation into account. It sounds pretty empty to me. The consultancy has studied all 76 markets. Some of them are busier than others. Is there any room to merge some of these markets? I think we have to wait for further study results. Anything to add from Dr. Cheung? Mr. Leung said he's not very confident, and he said he felt more comfortable after Mr. Chang clarified our views. I'm just afraid that you might be overconfident. We have considered lots of factors you mentioned. I'm trying to manage your expectations. It's impossible for us to improve all public markets in Hong Kong in one go. Each market is unique in terms of its characteristics and operating environment. We are trying to come up with a model for future development. I hope the study results won't apply only to the 4 to 5 public markets. We also want to apply the model to other markets. However, it's impossible to fit one model into all the public markets in Hong Kong, or even with 5 or 6 models, we cannot solve the problems of all markets. However, we want to identify certain factors and considerations and apply the same logic to other public markets. So our study is a basis, basically. So I hope you don't see our study as the ultimate answer. It's just not realistic. However, our work won't apply just to 5 or 6 markets. They are universal.
Ms. Sit-Ho, sorry I was out for a short time. If I've asked questions that was asked before, I would just listen to the recordings. I hope not. I read the study. It says that they are going to give recommendations on the functions and positioning of public markets. Functions can be quite wide in scope. What role do public markets play in people's lives? Can that role be expanded? Apart from the top floor, where not many people will patronize because they sell dry goods. And some markets are famous for their cooked food stores, and a lot of patrons use the wet goods stores. I know that there are vacant stores. Can you turn public markets into another community center for the area? Say, for example, it's a leftover food processing center. Say, for example, through a special design, the leftover of market stores can be centralized and dealt with in situ. And we talk about the 3 landfills and this incinerator, but sometimes some waste are still edible. So perhaps you can talk to the FEHD so that in every public market there will be some area to process leftover or collect resources and waste. And it also serves as a distribution center, so that people in need can go to public markets to find what they need. And for people who are more well off and they have abundant resources, unused resources, they can donate or have these extra resources dealt with. Management itself is problematic. I don't know whether it's because the government's doing it, that's why you're left out of it. When it comes to tendering, law enforcement, there are a lot of problems with the management. And sometimes recommendations cannot be implemented. Well, I ask government officials to give them a freer rein so that they will look into management as well. So I asked the officials and the consultants to look at tendering, setting of rental, taking over of stores, transfer of permits, environmental hygiene, water supply, sewage treatment. PAS. The study covers management as well, manpower, time management, etc. Let me give you an example. We were told that FEHD public markets close at a certain time, whereas other markets close at a later time. They look at these areas as well, and they will give recommendations on manpower as well. And let me add that in relation to food waste, well, there are follow-up actions taken by the administration. FEHD and EPDs put in place some pilot sites to deal with food waste. And this is something that we've been following up on. It may not be necessary for the consultant to work on this. If these pilot sites are successful, it may be extended to other areas. So when it comes to poverty alleviation, recycling of food, and the centralized dealing with waste, I think it will be very effective, because the FEHD has 37 public markets. They have manpower, they have land, they have the biggest establishment, including subcontractors. And I think there should be a discussion to link them with poverty alleviation and environmental industry. Yes, our new director is very experienced in this. Mr. James Tian has gone out, and I would like to say something. Mr. Wu Chi-wai made a very important point. How do you boost footfall in a public market. That is very important because without sufficient footfall, businesses cannot survive. So that is very important. And the trade mix, that is also very important. Say on the ground floor there are 3 stores selling fish, and the 4th store is at the back. This 4th store will have no business because people buy their fish at the front, and they won't go all the way to the back. So actually the store at the back is very important too. Mr. Ray Chan. Well, after hearing from Ms. Chang, I get a better idea of the study. Well, I call it the crucial case studies. Say successful cases, you find out what are the factors contributing to the success, and then you apply the same to other public markets. And for some markets that fail miserably, I want you to identify these markets and find out why they have failed. There is a confrontation between the FEHD and store operators. These are cases worth studying. If you can identify these cases in the focus groups, it will be beneficial. Of course, FEHDs won't like it because they may be heavily criticized, but at least you will get their opinion. And that will be beneficial to your report. And I would like to clarify expectation management. In the annex, it's a paper of the FHB in August 2013. And it says that the consultant is expected to submit the preliminary findings of the study in mid-2014. It's only about preliminary findings. So the first stage only, the findings of the positioning and functions of the public market. So it will have to go through all 4 stages. And what will the timing be? At the time when this was penned, the administration had in mind for preliminary findings to be submitted in mid-2014. I believe that you have taken reference of the schedule of this subcommittee. We have a discussion every month. I think you can dovetail your work progress with ours. In October last year, they have looked at all 76 markets, and they have conducted 2 consultation sessions. They are working on the questionnaire survey. There are other work involved. So we have already done they have already done some of the work. Hopefully in the middle of the year, for the other stages, there will be some progress. And we have this continuous discussions with the subcommittee. We will interact with you, and we will take on board your views. PAS, don't forget that there is a time limit of this subcommittee. We only have a life of 1 year. Mr. Alan Lau, for the record, PAS, if you look at the minutes of the Food Safety and Environmental Hygiene panel, you see that when it comes to public markets, we have been following this issue for about 10 years. And this subcommittee members have been following up the issue of public markets. we have a regular communication channel with trader network, with the trader network. But I'm still on talking terms with the Bureau Secretary. And we, of course, would like to be partners of the government to make this better. Well, I don't know about the consultant prior to today, and as to Miss Patsy Chang, actually I've read her work. I have faith in her. I've read her magazine, C Network. They have made some very profound observations or comments, and I believe that they have done studies on public markets. With the agreement of the, well, of course, we're not working at the opposite side of the administration. The frozen period of public market rentals will expire on the 31st of October 2015. I'm sure you don't want to see a reoccurrence of people on market stalls on strike or traders jumping off bridges. Of course, in this review, we would first like to hear about positioning of the public market. I hope that we will always be on talking terms throughout the entire period. You said that there will be preliminary findings in mid-2014. Do you have a draft of the final report? Or at least an idea? There is a presentation by the consultant. There is no timetable on slide 4. It talks about the 4 stages with no date given. Well, as I said, this is for the record. How can we tie in with your work of different stages so that we have discussions with the administration, with the consultant? Something can be done with our public market network. Now I see that there are 4 stages, but we don't know how we can dovetail our work with yours. The consultant will be the ones who does the work. So timetable. We value and treasure members' the views of members. Well, the freezing period of rental will expire on the 31st of December 2015, and we hope that this study will finish within 1 year. So March 2015 is a deadline. And it says that in the 4th quarter of 2014, we will revert to the subcommittee. If we use the 4th quarter as a deadline, as said in the annex, schedule may be tight, but we will do our best. We have done a lot of work, and there will be more to start. We hope that summer 2014 we will be able to more or less finish this study, so that in the 4th quarter we'll be able to revert to you our progress.
The government is looking at the questionnaires, and the consultant has come up with a draft, and the government is vetting the questionnaire. We're happy to know that the Secretary will share it with us. Will you share it with us during the next meeting, which will take place next month? I understand you will distribute the surveys. You will hand out questionnaires to to different tenants, I think the store owners won't have any time to fill in surveys. So I guess you will send people to the markets to survey these people, right? So would you consult our comments first? What does your schedule look like? We hope to launch our surveys in May, and we understand the members' comments. Once the questionnaire is confirmed, we will share it with the LegCo members. If you have any comments, please let us know. So we hope we can follow the timeline as scheduled. Technically speaking, if you just, as Mr. Chen said, will you seek help from the more so-called powerful people in the markets for help? If you just approach the store owners, they might consider you strangers, and they might be unfriendly to you. Have you ever thought about these things? Maybe the consultant can add something. On the consultation sessions, the FEHD had helped, and we have the network, so we have facilitated the work of the consultant. Over 1,100 questionnaires were given out. Perhaps the consultant can add something? Dr. Su? Dr. Chang will talk about the papers. Apart from the paper, we also conducted focus group discussions, and we would also further explain. As the Vice Chairman said, this survey will be conducted one-on-one, and our questionnaire staff, our interviewers will conduct the questionnaires. When we interview housewives or patrons who visit or don't visit public markets, this type of survey is relatively easier. Hopefully, since our mission is to improve public markets, I'm confident people will be friendly to us. And I think the government does have a good standing among the community. We will monitor the progress of our work. If we face challenges when we approach the store owners or tenants, we will then think of solutions and possibly seek help from people from the districts. If you have difficulties here, I'm sure the LegCo members can help. This will be ideal. Michael Tian. Ms. Chang, you have something to add? We have to deal with expectation management. First, is this only empty talk? Our aim is to be as specific and concrete as possible. And this is reflected in the work in those 5 or 6 public markets. Each market faces different problems. As Dr. Chang said, it's like a doctor looking at different patients. Each market has a specific set of problems they face. And at the same time, we want to come up with ready-made remedies for different markets. They might not apply to all markets, but we want to come up with solutions that can be applied to different markets. So this is something we want to implement as soon as possible. After the questionnaires, we would have more figures and data which will help us with our future work. And our focus groups will converge on certain markets and tenants. Some members might be familiar with specific markets. For instance, I know Mr. Leung is familiar with a lot of markets or districts. I'm sure that such collaboration would help. We certainly need help from more people, both from this subcommittee and the community, because it's a big project. Improving public markets take a lot of effort from the community. And we want to identify these 6 markets as soon as possible and set up focus groups, and then we can sit down and do some brainstorming. A lot of members are very experienced in this issue, certainly a lot more experienced than myself. So your views are very valuable. We should give the community more hope. Michael Tian. We should focus on higher level issues today. We have problems and we have to know what we will do with these problems. If Ocean Park is a government department, would it be what it is today? So my point is, the basic premise that the government is responsible for managing public markets, should we continue with this principle? All the discussions are based on this assumption or principle. People have lots of wish lists, recommendations, and views. I just want to know what everyone thinks about the positioning of public markets. It used to be a tool for promoting livelihoods of the community. Today, I think it should serve the public and provide goods at competitive prices. We shouldn't allow certain tenants to go out of business. The FEHD is losing $200 million per year for the last 2 years. Public markets face problems, and not just unsatisfactory environments. A lot of tenants are no longer interested in operating businesses. They face increasing rents, and certain tenants are paying very cheap rents while doing very little business. I have seen lots of places, lots of cases like that. We are wasting a lot of valuable resources in the community, and we are driving away people who seriously want to do business. The increase in rents really hurts a lot of tenants, and some of them cannot afford to install air conditioners because the AC fees they have to pay is comparable to the rents they used to pay in the old days. You mentioned other improvements like lighting, ventilation. If tenants are not interested in operating in markets, these improvements would be in vain. Will you set up a statutory body and allow them to run public markets in a different way? My opinion is to cancel the highest bid mechanism. Instead, the statutory body should choose the best tenants And how do we choose the best tenants? I think we should have fixed rents, and the rent level should be set as 80 or 90% of the market rate, so we won't see another debacle like the Link. And tenants must estimate their business volume. We should see who can promise the most amount of business, and we should obtain information about their business, the volume of their business, and if they can meet their sales targets, then they can continue for another few years. And this way we can encourage tenants to set competitive prices, and they can still make money if a lot of people visit. And we have a win-win situation here. The customers are happy, they can buy cheaper goods, and tenants can get business. This way we can encourage people who are serious in operating their business in markets. So we should cancel the highest bid mechanism. Instead, we should look at the turnover of tenants. Those with the highest turnover can continue. Chairman, you work in retail, and me too. Today, landlords no longer use the highest rent mechanism. They would always look at the amounts of business you can generate. For people who aren't serious, they might not work very hard. And those public markets would have no appeal to the tenants. So the basic principle is that the tenants must do business. So I hope the consultant can adopt a newer model of thinking. We can consider whether a statutory body is required. Tin Shui Wai is the best place for a pilot scheme. People have been angling for a new market. The planning department or lands department said it's viable to launch a new market. So why don't we make it the first pilot spot? We can take our time to see whether a statutory body is required. This model can apply to waning markets. For successful markets, they can remain the same. But for waning markets with very little business, we should think about adopting a new model. Is there a way to monitor the business of these tenants? Perhaps the consultant can give their view. We have noted Mr. Tian's comments, and the consultant will incorporate the comments and reflect it in their report. Ms. Chang.
It's a comment with vision. We've heard it. We need time to digest it. There are other views in the community, different situations and different factors. So I need time. Can I just say one thing? If there are different voices because they want to protect underprivileged traders, not about how much rent they pay, but traders who don't do good business. I think it's not for the consultant to decide. This is a very deep-rooted issue. It's about values. About charging is not difficult. There are a lot of shopping malls in on the mainland that they will every month just calculate their turnover. We can ask them to do so every day. Now this is a new angle. Any other comments? PAS, you've heard members' views. I hope that once you have finalized the questionnaire, can you, as soon as possible, give it to members, and we will reflect our views to you before you use the questionnaires. I hope that we will have a close working where we will cooperate closely with the administration and the consultant, so that people can buy goods that are value for money, and at the same time footfall will increase. Of course, when it comes to an enclosed building, if you want air conditioning, then you prefer it to be enclosed. But if it's enclosed, it may not be able to attract customers. And sometimes there are hygiene problems, and then it will fail to attract the middle class. And as a member said, sometimes some public markets close at about 4 to 5 o'clock. And people finish work at about 7 o'clock. So where can they go buy them goods? Supermarket, but supermarket goods are not as fresh. We want to have markets that offers fresh produce at competitive prices. Once again, I thank the consultant and the administration for joining us. There is still one item. It's the work plan of the subcommittee. You will find the proposed work plan. Members, if you think there is any need for addition or alteration, please let the Secretariat know. Thank you. Any other business? Then meeting adjourned. Thank you.